Hey there, Cats and Kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on the big-time Marvel film that just came out, Ant-Man. And I enjoyed it for the most part, I have to say, but it was definitely a mixed bag for me. And I feel like from right out of the gate, the thing that I'm most left with is if you're like a comic book movie fan that couldn't get sort of a hold of the Ang Lee Hulk movie or Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds, and you come out of this movie loving it and championing it and, sort of flying off the bat with how much you love it, you're kind of a comic book movie fan hypocrite, as far as I'm concerned. Because I feel like the qualms that this movie had could be chalked up to the same kinds of qualms, editing things here and there, the comedy, the humor, some of the sequences where, you're getting internal to the characters. There were a lot of really, really great things about Ant-Man, and I came out of it really loving certain aspects. From the sort of prologue with the young Hank Pym, Michael Douglas, of course, just being pimp. He puts the Pym in pimp, you know what I'm saying? Loved his character in the movie, loved the dynamic between he and his daughter, Hope, Evangeline Lilly, who I just thought was adorable. I think she's adorable anyway, but I really liked the dynamic between them. It was adversarial. It was, they while familial, they weren't getting along and everything. We see that she was integral into sort of ousting her own father from the company he founded and created. The villain of the movie is just kind of typical movie villain. He might as well have been Lex Luthor with the bald aesthetic and everything. And I just felt like there was so much of the movie that was just superhero movie tropes going through the motions. And the really spectacular stuff was like Paul Rudd's Ant-Man, all of those action sequences when he's finally in the suit, figuring out the suit and everything. There were so many aspects that I kind of felt were predictable and borderline cliche in the film. But Paul Rudd, his personality, I've always been a fan of his. I don't go following around his filmography, but whenever he's in something, he crops up in something that I have an interest in. I really enjoy watching him, and he makes me laugh and everything like that. So from that point of view, I should have really been on board with a lot of the humor in this film. And I just feel like a lot of it fell kind of flat for me, There were only maybe one or two times where I laughed when they were going for like 20 or 30 different laughs here and there and everything. And it just wasn't working for me. I mean, that one point where there's a really touching, heart-wrenching scene, tugging at the heartstrings between Hank and his daughter, where he finally reveals what happened to the original Wasp. Again, calling back on that prologue nature, it just gave me goosebumps. I was like, I want a movie of this. I want a young Hank Pym movie. Sort of flashback with Howard Stark and all of that stuff. I think Peggy Carter was there in the beginning. Just amazing. That just excites me to no end, And here is this touching moment, and I was actually getting misty. I was like, as somebody who lost my parents early on in life, of course, I could relate to aspects of that. Of course, they weren't superheroes, but they might as well have been because they were my parents, and I looked up to them and, that kind of thing. And that's the weightiness of that scenario. And then Rudd comes in and he ruins the scene, and the joke is supposed to be, oh, he acknowledges he ruins the scene, and then, I'm going to go make some tea, and it was just like, who edited this? Who kept this scene in? Why is it there? I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the comedic aspects, again, fell flat. They did not rub me the right way. But then again, I felt like this when I was seeing the first trailer. I gave the first trailer for this movie a lot of flack because I didn't understand the tone they were going for. And it's, I have to applaud that trailer now because that's exactly the tone the movie gave us. Only it was epic, it was grandiose, but on a tiny, infinitesimal scale when it came to like the battle sequences, especially toward the end. I thought I was going to be cringing through the entirety of that end, set piece battle between Yellow Jacket and, of course, Ant-Man with the little, Thomas the Steam Train or whatever it is, that whole aesthetic. And he's there to save his daughter. We didn't know that seeing the trailer. It made that much more weightier, much more impactful to me, that final, as I say, it was a huge, humongous battle, but on a small scale, such a tiny scale. And all of those little references when you see the train get knocked over and they go from being right there in the heat of it, in that small scope with, the hero and the villain, to pulling back to our level, and then we just see the train flop over. In the trailer, I hated that. In the movie, I liked it. That was one of the times I actually laughed. Everything like that. Basically, I think the things that fell flat for me really revolved around, even though I think the characters were interesting, Rudd's, Ant-Man's sort of posse, basically. The idea that he's got this guy who he knew from prison after he got left out, picked him up, took him in, and he's trying to hook him up with these two other guys. Like that trio of guys, I found interesting, and I think they could have been much better, more well-roundedly utilized in the film. I feel like it was kind of a wasted use for them through all of that jokey stuff and everything like that. When you actually have them doing their job and performing their skills, helping, being backup men to Ant-Man as he's going in and trying to get, the Yellow Jacket suit and all that kind of stuff, and destroy any and all information that this bad guy has followed in the footsteps of Hank Pym and all of that. That to me was the utmost intriguing, and I was actually watching that sort of like, my eyes glued to the screen. Like every little moment along those lines really thoroughly intrigued me, just as much as Rudd being in the suit and jumping around like the Ant-Man. The training sequence, I feel like that went on a little bit too long, and again, there was some punchy humor, no pun intended, with, of course, Evangeline Lilly's Hope character punching him in the face, and were you aiming for the hand, and those kinds of things. Some of that was funny. Seeing him reacting to the ants for the first time, trying to gain their trust and controlling them, which, as an animal lover and a nature lover, especially with a sister who collects and loves just observing bug life like crickets and ants and slugs and snails, all these kinds of things. She has just this love of life and this vivaciousness of looking at nature around her, even things that would repulse the normal person, the bugs, the insects of our world. I love that aspect of this movie, with the little girl, with the little doll that he gives her on her birthday and everything, and with this, growing familiarity with the ants and the different kinds of ants there are. There's an aspect of the movie that for kids, it's going to teach them something, even adults, even like myself. I didn't know of the scientific names of these creatures and such like that, and I found that fascinating, but being able to relate to them and make them sort of on our level as they are living creatures in our world, and having a respect for them and treating them equally and everything like that, and the communicative nature of those just astounded me. I loved all of that. I was fascinated by all of that. I was excited by all of that because it reminded me of picking up comics when I was younger and hearing scientific theory, or rather reading, or having certain nature aspects described about, jungle life or this, that, or the other thing as it pertained to a hero or heroine in the comic universe that it was in, whether it be DC, Marvel, something else. Always really intrigued and excited me. I mean, I was a fan of science class and writing and all that kind of stuff. So all of these things were always, sort of uppermost in my mind, not just the entertainment value and being wowed by, oh, who's going to kick whose ass in this issue, It was things like that kept my love for comics just reviving over and over and over again. Every single issue, every single trade and everything. And I feel like that's ever present in this movie. And I just feel so heartbroken that it wasn't pitch perfect. It could have been so much better. And I feel like you really get that sense when you see all the writer credits and everything. And I think Edgar Wright was, what would he have done? What could have been if it was just all his ball game and everything? Just stands in my mind because it's like there was so many cooks in the kitchen at the end of the day. And while this movie has so much redeeming value for it, like, again, going back to my first statement in the video, if you come out clamoring for how great this movie is, and at the same time, out of the same mouth, you can be dissing the hell out of, like, Green Lantern, Ang Lee's Hulk, which have so many similar aesthetics to them. Pacing, story-wise, editing, sequences even, just having the same kind of feel. That whole existential thing where he goes down to that infinitesimal level, beyond, even the subatomic level. If that doesn't sort of, remain analogous in a sense, or have the same feel, retain the same value of that sequence at the end of the Ang Lee Hulk film where all seems to be lost and, all of Hulk's strength has been siphoned out. If you can't objectively say these are similar things and they were depicted in similar ways, similarly, again, with the Green Lantern film, Ryan Reynolds and the whole smoke creature thing at the end, like, I just feel like you're somewhat hypocritical and you don't really know what tastes and values you have. For whatever reason, usually I come out of a movie and I'm just ecstatic about it. I want to champion it. I want to celebrate all the things I love about it. But this time out, I was more attuned to the things that I just feel like didn't win me over. And, all the rest of the good things couldn't string me through enough to sort of, turn my head and ignore those aspects. And so while I did really enjoy the movie and I would be uber stoked. I mean, one of the best parts was the fact that Falcon is in there and, it's setting up with the mid-credits sequence, Wasp, Evangeline Lilly taking up that mantle. Uber stoked for that. Uber stoked for the links between, of course, the Ant-Man film and the characters in it and the Avengers. Getting the Avengers reference in there was awesome. The whole aspect that Hank Pym wants to keep the suit and his science away from A. Stark. I love that. And then, of course, the hints toward what's to come with Civil War by the end. I'm just goosebumps. I'm uber stoked. But the movie could have been that much better. In my humble opinion, it's just my opinion. This is my reaction solely, and that's all I can really say about it. I enjoyed so much of it, but it could have been better. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of Ant-Man, if you've seen it as of the time of this recording, and if you liked it much more than I did, if you are championing it, if you think an ass for saying people are hypocrites if they don't like these movies versus this movie, and or did you feel the same way I did, or even worse, did you hate the movie? Anything goes in the comments below. Loving having the conversation with you guys. And as always, that'll be it for me on this, so I'll catch you later. Peace.